In 2016, Varia Bortsova started a Twitter account to share pictures from her Moscow childhood that soon became a repository of Soviet images, with people around the world contributing to it. While acknowledging the brutalities of the USSR, these images you can find on her account @SovietVisuals have become even more prescient during Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Varia joins us now to discuss all of this from an undisclosed location.
Varia, welcome to Quicktake, and thank you so much for being here. It's not just Twitter, right? You're also on Instagram, Facebook, and SovietVisuals has grown way past 1 million followers as people engage with your content to sort of reflect on the cultural norms of the former Soviet Union. I'm curious, what are the conversations on your social accounts and your feeds looking like now, and how have they changed since Russia's attack of Ukraine began?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. It's a really scary time, and I mean, Russia is a big country with a lot of people. I certainly cannot speak for the whole of it. Same for other countries, but at least in my experience and in my circle, and looking at the comments on the account, the majority of commentary I see are expressions of shock. People are horrified and disgusted at this tragedy and this destruction that my country has unleashed on our neighbor. Everyone is trying to do whatever they can to help. I've tried to organize a couple of crowdfunding initiatives via the account itself as well, but it's just it's terrifying, and it's not something I think we could have expected. So I think everyone is trying to deal with it as they can.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And one way you're dealing with it is on your Twitter account, you've pinned a tweet that shows a plate full of dumplings, which of course is a staple home-cooked meal in Russia. You've added text to it as well, make dumplings, the emoji, not war. Can you tell us how this idea came about?
Yeah, so this was actually a post I made on February 23rd. So this was before the war began, but when these conversations were already floating around and we expected that something might happen soon. So the reason I focused on dumplings in this post is because in the 1970s, the USSR actually manufactured these dumpling making guns, which would be used in cooking. You would have a gun that would make dumplings for you. So it was a way to kind of express this anti-war sentiment in a way that people from different cultures can relate, not just post-Soviet countries, but many countries around the world have dumplings as a staple cuisine. So it was an expression of that. But unfortunately, the war still happened, and then here we are.
Yeah, one of the hashtags is also make gyoza not war, for instance, Maddie.
Well, it's a way of sort of speaking out about the war without doing it in this sort of overt way, right? And I know, of course, Russian censorship is something that we can't ignore in this conversation. Varia, I'm curious, are you concerned at all about your accounts, even though they've existed for years, potentially getting banned or getting any other type of backlash from authorities?
So honestly, I am now outside of Russia, thankfully, and so is most of my family, and so are most of my friends who are trying to flee, each for their own reason. But I mean, at this point, we have reached a stage that is completely unprecedented, right? It's not about an individual account in Russia now. Calling the war a war is already a criminal thing. You're not allowed to say that, and you could end up in prison for 15 years for talking about the war. So I feel like we have passed the stage where we're discussing individual social media accounts, and it's just the truth itself is criminalized, which is really frightening and throws us all the way back to the Stalin times, where some of these things happened in a similar scale, well, a bigger scale, and hopefully we will not get there.
Well, Varia, one strong example of that, of course, is the TV producer who spoke out on the air. Let's take a listen to what she said on ABC in an interview earlier this week.
With this action, I wanted to demonstrate to the world that not all Russian people believe the same. And I believe that many people, more than half of the people in Russia, are against the war. And the severe sanctions that the West is imposing on all of the people is probably a correct decision, but you must understand that not just the oligarchs and Putin's closest circle are suffering from these sanctions. Ordinary people, ordinary Russian citizens who are against the war are also being affected.
Varya, I'm curious in listening to what she had to say there in that ABC clip. What else do you want people outside of Russia to understand about what the resistance inside of Russia looks like?
It's really challenging to resist in Russia, because the reality is such that if you enter the street with a placard or with any form of protest, you get bundled up in a police van and detained and arrested. And so the same thing is happening on social media. As you know, Instagram and Facebook are now banned in Russia. So even logistically, it's really hard to express the dissent, and not just hard, but dangerous. So while people are trying, or many people are trying to speak out against the war, Putin has made it almost impossible to express the stance, and it's just becoming worse and worse and worse as every day goes by.
Yeah, well, one creative way that you've chosen to express dissent or the resistance to the official narrative is through the images that you have on your account of anti-war posters from the Soviet era. I know that you've been collecting these for years, and it certainly happened before the invasion of Ukraine, but to what extent do you get a sense that these current events are giving people inside Russia a new perspective on these images that the Soviet government distributed to everyone?
It's a really good question, and I think, well, there were many. The Soviet Union was a long period of time, and a lot of things happened there. But the fact remains is it was a very oppressive system, and there were very dark times and times driven by a lot of propaganda. And what we're seeing now is in many ways a repeat of that, but just of the bad parts. And what frightens me most is that several people I know personally have actually bought into the propaganda that's circulating now, despite understanding that back then not all of it was true. But I have, former colleagues and friends who just refuse to believe that a war is going on. They watch state television, they read the mainstream media, which of course is the only media left now in Russia, and they somehow find ways to justify to themselves that this is not in fact an invasion, that it's a special rescue operation where we're helping some poor Ukrainians trapped in their oppressive government. So it's very interesting how, even looking back at history and seeing that a lot of these things happened in one way or other before, people get trapped by the same methods. It's frightening.
Well, certainly a lot of daily life has changed, I would imagine, for people on the ground in Russia, Varya. I wonder how much of that has been impacted by foreign companies cutting off business in the region. Can you talk about, some of the challenges that we're seeing today and how that's potentially linked back to the Soviet era when it was, difficult to travel, shortages, long lines, long queues for things that I know you've posted images about in the past. Do you see this as a full circle moment?
Yeah, I think many of us have felt that, and one of the trivial examples is McDonald's closing down temporarily for now, but we don't know when it's coming back. But one story that my parents always tell me is the moment McDonald's first opened up after in the Soviet Union, just a year or so before it fell apart, and it was a sign of the new times to come. It was a sign of potential freedom, of change. And now we are almost, falling back there, where companies are retreating. People are, of course, there were lots of people working for these foreign companies, so they're losing jobs. All the international credit card companies have also withdrawn. So there are a bunch of these even logistical challenges. How do you get your salary? How do you travel? Flights are canceled. It's completely unprecedented, and I think none of us realize at this point what the full consequences will be. But again, none of this compares to our Ukrainian friends who are suffering and under the bombs right now. So just in every way, it's a massive crisis, and it's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy, but one thing that you make clear through your accounts and the visuals that you choose is that even during the foreboding Soviet days, ordinary people found ways to create joy, to create laughter, to celebrate life. Where do you find the optimism now as you look at your generation reconciling the violence in Ukraine with what you're told officially by the Russian government?
I'm a very positive person, but even I'm finding it very hard to be optimistic right now. I guess the only hope I have is that things have escalated so much over the past 3 weeks, or I guess it's been a month now, that there is no way this can continue for too long, that things are going to change. And hopefully this means that the regime will change and there will be a chance for us to build something new, which hopefully resembles a democracy a little closer. I think that's my hope, because there are lots of great, intelligent people within Russia. There are lots of smart Russians outside Russia. I think the potential is there. There just needs to be a change. So, I mean, as my parents tell me, when the USSR fell apart, it happened in a matter of days. People did not expect it to happen, and it was, after 70 years of a totalitarian system, things changed almost overnight. So as much as it seems now that there is no light, I hope that there will be eventually, and I hope it happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, things can go for a long time and slowly and then suddenly, Maddie.
Right. And Varya, it just seems like, in 50 years, your account is going to continue to have this legacy. I'm curious, in the decades to come, when others start accounts like yours, what do you think that's going to look like? How do you think we'll look back on the 2020s? And what do you hope for that to look like?
I hope that future generations will learn from this time, and will learn from the tragic events of the past several weeks. I think it is really important to acknowledge the importance of information and access to information in all of this. I think it is important to acknowledge the truth, even when the truth hurts and when it is painful. If we are able to overcome this as a nation, as a country, I think the future is bright. But right now, we are not quite there.